Seems like a gambler.
I had $500.
Okay.
She did. She came into her psych class and said she was a gambler.
Okay, guys, yeah, if you guys want to look at the warm-up questions, just asking you guys to graph those linear equations, and we're going to talk about graphing linear inequalities here in a bit.
Kinsey. Who stole my calculator?
You did. Maddie.
The light's okay off, or do you want them on?
I think it's good.
I think it's all right.
Shoot. What happened?
So giggly.
Go get the monster over here.
Oh.
I think let's go to the bathroom. Sure, it's making her cry.
Stop it. You're making her laugh.
She's crying. She's so sad. He's actually right.
What movie?
It's so funny. It's so funny.
I say it's your favorite too.
It's James Ritter movie too.
You just get it. Oh my gosh. Stop laughing.
I don't think I did this.
Garrett, stop
Okay,
it.
guys, just, sorry. Do I have any, volunteers to go?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I did this.
Girls, go ahead.
I called one. I called two. I called one.
I got two.
Oh, okay, buddy.
You're kind of big, sorry. Let me slide it down.
What's up, everybody? Well, now what does that do?
Okay, go ahead. Can you reach that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, we're supposed to get.
What are you doing? So you have to divide everything by 2.
Yep, I did.
Me? Oh.
It's
And then you just leave it as the improper fraction. This is your equation. You gotta start. Oh, can I use the eraser?
Why did it go
Hold on, use the eraser real quick. Hey.
Is it back to writing?
No.
You guys need it for
You keep doing it.
all you use guys. Why does it go white?
It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, try your best.
Abby!
Communicate up there, ladies.
Is it back on Gerard?
Oh, I'm busy. Saturday.
The why, that's the
Okay.
why interesting.
Okay, just leave it there.
Is it drawing?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, why does it go up?
This is why I can never be a math teacher. Because I can't figure out the board.
Yeah, that's it.
2.5 something.
Okay, this isn't
30,
supposed to be there, I just
30.
messed up.
Out of 50.
Oh.
My paper just accidentally hit the board, so that's what this is. And Kinsey won't let me.
Oh my gosh, you like the kid in church and stuff laughing.
She won't let me erase that. That's not so
There you
sweet.
go.
We're all jealous, right?
We're all jealous.
So I'm good.
Okay,
So either you're. we're
Hey
both-
guys, are you guys okay with what they have there?
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, good question. Why are these not B's?
No absolute value.
There's no absolute value, so we don't have to worry about the V shape because these aren't absolute value equations. So no worries with that. So these are just straight lines that we need to graph. And it looks like they did a good job of that. Now, it did ask you a couple of quick questions on 3 and 4 here. And if you didn't see those, that was part of the warm-up, that's okay. It said, is 2 negative 1 a solution? 3x plus y equals 5. And then the same question, but then I changed the equal sign to a less than symbol. So is 2 negative 1 a solution to 3x plus y equals 5? Is that true? The solution? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Very yes. How do you guys know? What'd you do?
Put it into the.
Yeah, so we're putting it into the equation as our x and y. So 3 times 2 plus a negative 1, does that equal 5? 6 minus 1 equals 5, so this one's a yes. But then I'm asking you guys the exact same question, except now I've changed it to the less than symbol. So putting that in, we find out, is 5 less than 5? No. 5 isn't less than, it'd have to be or equal to, so this one's a no. So that slight difference is going to be kind of what we're working on today. It's going to be showing that there can be a variety of answers, but if it's right on the borderline like that one wouldn't be part of the solution. So we're going to kind of use that to kind of help us here in what we're doing today. We're graphing linear inequalities. So what Kinsey and Abby did was linear equations. Now we're doing inequalities. Does anyone remember what that adds to this? How does that change our graph? Rather than just being a straight line, what happens? Anyone remember? You remember? What's that? We have to kind of decide half of the graph works and half of the graph doesn't. So we're gonna end up shading part of it, if you guys recall that.
Oh, yeah.
Shaded. Also, the type of line will be dependent on the type of inequality it is. So we'll kind of remind you guys of that as we talk through some of these. So to graph our linear inequalities, we still want the equation in y equals mx plus b form. It just won't be an equal sign. It'll be an inequality. But since we're dealing with an inequality, we have to remember about the idea of multiplying or dividing by a negative. So when we're solving this, so if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip the inequality. That's something to remember about solving with inequalities. We'll do an example of that when we get to the back side.
What?
All right, so the inequality is dependent on the type of, or the inequality makes the line dependent on what type of inequality it is. So you guys remember we talked about open versus closed circles? So the open circle was if it was like strictly greater than or less than, and closed circle if it was equal to. But that also applies to the lines. How do we show that with a line? How do we show like an open line? remember what we did. Yeah, a dotted line, yep, so we don't do like a solid line, we're just gonna do a dotted line. Whereas this one will be a solid line. In this case, the line is not part of the solution. So if something falls right on the line, that's not gonna be part of the solution. It's kind of the idea when we have different rules for like volleyball versus football. If you're on the line in volleyball, it's in. If you're on the line in football, it's out. So it's just different rules for different scenarios, and that's the same thing here. Line is part of the solution in this case. So remembering the type of line is going to be important. And then finally, we use a test point. They look like faces.
Oh, quit.
I don't know.
So we're going to shade the section where the solutions are. So we're going to shade the section with solutions. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a test point to see where we should shade. And that test point should not be on the line because the dividing line is not a good way to indicate what works and what doesn't. So this would be like if I said I'm going to grade my test with you guys as two groups, this side of the room and this side of the room. If this side of the room I pick one person at random and they get it right, everyone over here gets the points. They're all right together. Versus over here, if one of you guys gets it wrong, all the rest of you guys would be wrong as well. It's kind of like almost like I'm assuming you guys are all cheating off of like Nick or something. Like the bad person.
Yeah.
Versus Jack's over here would be right, and so we'd all cheat off of Jack's, and we'd all have the right answer.
Of course. Who else would I cheat off of?
All right. Did everyone get those? Sorry.
Yeah.
That fast.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
I've got real Miss Shaw in here.
All right, so we're gonna flip to the back side and do some actual graphing and testing of those solutions. Again, you're gonna want to be able to shade part of the graph. Now, we actually got into this in algebra. I don't think we actually go this far in algebra 2, or we don't do it quite yet. We'll end up doing where they overlap and the two colors came together and you're all excited about your, like blue and pink make purple or something like that. We're not doing that quite yet. We're only doing one color at a time. So, on the back side, this first one, so we're graphing this inequality. Now, right away, I see that less than symbol. So I want to remind myself that less than symbol already tells me it's going to be a dotted line. So I'm going to make a little mark or something to remind myself not to make a solid line there, like on the graph, but that's just my little way to remember. Now, this one's already in slope-intercept form, so I'm ready to graph this. Where does it begin? -6. So I'm going to put a dot at -6. Now, even though it's a dotted line, I usually use solid dots. If you want to do an open dot, you can. I'm not picky about that, but the dotted line kind of indicates it more. But so we put a dot there. And then my slope is the 2/1?
Yeah.
So up 2/1. I can keep doing that, and I can reverse it. Again, these are not the V shapes because we don't have absolute value. Could do absolute value with these, we're not. But now I'm going to make a dotted line with this. So now if you forget and you make it solid and you don't want to feel like going back and erasing, you can make a little note, but make sure you somehow indicate that you meant to make that a dotted line. So sometimes it's just too late and you use pen. So the little dotted lines going through that. But I'm not done, because actually right now, there's no solution shown. The dotted line's not part of the solution. We have to figure out where all the solutions are gonna be. So we're gonna pick a test point on one side of the line. So again, this is my test, like kind of my dipstick to see, did Nick get the question right? All of you guys would get those points. So we're gonna test a point on one side of the line. What point would you guys like to test?
0, 0.
I would love to test 0, 0 as well, because it's a really easy point to test. The only time I would not suggest picking 0, 0 is when it's right on the line. 0, 0 is really easy to test. So we're gonna test 0, 0. Put that into the equation. We're putting it into this inequality up here. 0 is less than 0 minus 6. Is 0 less than negative 6? No, negative 6 should be smaller than 0. So that means 0, 0 doesn't work. So that means everything over here is wrong. So I'm going to shade the other side of the line, and that's where the answers are going to be. So all my solutions, grab highlighter, it's kind of a pinky color though, so I'm going to color all over here.
It looks not that bad.
It looks like mustard.
Mustard.
I like mustard.
Now, technically, if you wanted to be really 100% like honest about this, we shouldn't really even stop at the end of the graph, but kind of know that it goes off and keeps going forever. Everything on this side of the line. Now, if you're like, I don't know if I believe you, like, does this really work? If you pick any point in this highlighted section, it will work in that equation. You could test 10, 0, you can test 5, negative 5. Anything in this shaded part should work in that inequality. That makes sense. Do you guys remember this? I know you learned it in algebra.
Maybe.
Yep. I remember.
I don't know. My algebra
What?
teacher was a
remember
little.
coloring.
Do you remember coloring?
I remember coloring.
I don't know. My algebra teacher's a little sketchy.
Yeah, we'll sketch.
Yeah, well, it doesn't want
All right. So, next one here. Why is number 2 a little bit more difficult? You see
Why
it?
is it by itself?
Y is not by itself. So we did get y alone. So what am I going to do to get y alone?
But since it's divided by negative, it should.
Yeah. So we have to divide by this negative, and since we're dividing by the negative, very good, we have to flip that inequality. We divided by a negative, so that's going to flip this over. We're going to flip that fraction. Not flip the fraction, flip the sign, sorry. Now this one has the equal to line, so it's going to be a solid line. Where does this one begin? Where do we begin this one?
0.
At 0. So we're going to begin at 0, 0. And then my slope is going to be negative 5 over 1. I'm going to go down 5 and over 1.
Steep.
Yep, steep slope. Nice negative. Slope dude would like this one. The most fun he would be having. Now this one's going to be a solid line, very steep, solid line. Now we have to figure out where to color.
What?
Yep, so you don't want to pick 0, 0, because 0, 0 would not be very helpful. It's on the dividing line. So we can test 1, 1, like Abby said. 1, 1 would be a great point to test. I like picking points, if we can, that I don't get mixed up, like I'm not confused which one goes where. So 1, 1 is a great point. Now you can put it back in the original equation or the new one, doesn't matter. So negative 2 times 1, is that greater or equal to 10 times 1? Is negative 2 greater than or equal to 10? I don't think so. Same thing here. 1 is not greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to 5. You could test it in either place, it doesn't matter. But we're testing 1, 1, that's what Abby suggested. So again, in this case, 1, 1 does not work. So we're apparently really bad at picking points, not that we need it to be right. We color on the opposite side of the line.
Don't trip over that. Thank
Okay.
you. Oh, it'll be okay. What?
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna have to go home and watch Ice Age.
Ice Age?
Yeah,
So funny.
I only like the Dawn of the Dinosaurs, so
It makes me a little sad for a while, but he really thinks he's the only mammoth left and he's not gonna have a family. Like,
Yes, I think
I know, but it's sad, it's sad until then. It's really hard.
I watched Up again and I forgot like how sad that movie is.
I feel like we watched Up like right after we had one of the boys or something, and we were like sitting at home like very emotional and we were like sobbing. We're like, what are we doing? Or something. Same thing, Marley and Me. That's a dog movie where the dog dies. Like I watched that in the hospital after delivering Griffin, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like,
You're like, I'm a mess.
it just asking to cry. Dogs dying in movies are
No.
pretty much my
So sad.
kryptonite. Okay. So guys, example 3 is a little more complicated because the y needs to get a loan, but there's kind of a lot going on there. What'd you do first? Add x. So I get 2y is greater than x plus 6. Then what do you want to do? Divide by 2. Divide everything by 2. So that means that in front of the x now there's going to be a half. 1/2 x. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are going to begin at 3 on the y-axis and go up 1 over 2 and down 1 back 2. And then don't forget this one is a dotted line. And then we have to pick a test point. It doesn't work again, does it? It's fine. It doesn't really matter if it works or not. It just tells us we're in color.
Yeah, it just tells us we're in color.
So 0 is not greater than 3, so 0, 0 doesn't work here. So we're gonna shade up here.
Lindsay, the people online are gonna hear you laugh all this whole time. And they're
crying.
gonna think you're making fun of them.
So my geometry class first hour is the most quiet class I think I've ever had. And I recorded my lesson in there, and then last hour they actually watched it just because I didn't know if I had to leave like during school or whatever. So and they're like, wait, there's actually kids in there. They were that quiet that like you never heard anyone else speak. Like they're so quiet. I'm like, does anyone have any questions? And no one like says anything. So it must be very scary. First hour of the day.
It's all freshmen?
It's mostly freshmen. And then the sophomores are just quiet sophomores.
Didn't know that existed.
Julia. Quiet. Who else is in there?
Oh, you're yelling at me. Oh, yeah. That's because I'm not doing something right.
Okay, so,
Poor Garrett.
okay guys, the next one, do you guys remember what kind of line it is if it's x equals something? What do you think? Vertical, very good. So vertical line, x is -7, so we go to -7 on the x-axis. And we're gonna draw a vertical solid line. Remember then y equals to be flat, so watch out for those for our homework tonight. And then does 0, 0 work?
No.
No, it doesn't again. 0 is not less than or equal to 7. I swear sometimes 0, 0 actually does work, but apparently not on my, did you see what happened? Okay, so, oh, real quick. There's one more question on the bottom.
Oh,
Oh, I see it.
The question is 3-4 solution for the inequality. So on this one on the left over here is 3-4. So over 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. No, so I mean they can ask you questions about the inequality and we can just look at the graph and see that it is or is not a solution there. Okay? Okay, we're way done. We're done way early. I think I was so nervous about not having enough time. Okay.
yeah, like a little 10 minutes.
Okay, so let me hit stop.
Oh.